Author's Preface of Verse and Worse. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Verse and Worse by Harry Graham. Author's Preface. With guilty conscience-stricken tears, I offer up these rhymes of mine to children of mature years, from 17 to 99. A special solace they may be in days of second infancy. The frenzied mother who observes this volume in her offspring's hand and trembles for the darling's nerves must please to clearly understand, if baby suffers by and by, the publisher's at fault, not I. But should the little brat survive and fatten on this style of rhyme, to raise a heartless home and thrive through a successful life of crime, the publisher would have you see that I am to be thanked, not he. Fond parent, you whose children are of tender age, from 2 to 8, pray keep this little volume far from reach of such and relegate my verses to an upper shelf, where you may study them yourself. End of author's preface.
Foreword by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Carrie Adams, your book voice. Foreword. The press may pass my verses by with sentiments of indignation, and say, like Greeks of old, that I corrupt the youthful generation. I am unmoved by taunts like these, and so I think was Socrates. Howe'er the critics may revile, I pick no journalistic quarrels, quite realizing that my style makes up for any lack of morals, for which I feel no shred of shame, and Byron would have felt the same. I don't intend a child to read these lines which are not for the young, for if I did, I should indeed feel fully worthy to be hung. Is hanged the perfect tense of hang? Correct me, Mr. Andrew Lang. O young of heart, though in your prime, by you these verses may be seen. Accept the moral with the rhyme, and try to gather what I mean. But if you can't, it won't hurt me, and Browning would, I know, agree. Be reassured I have not got the style of Stephen Phillips' heroes, nor Henry Jones's power of plot, nor wit like Arthur Wing Pinero's. If so, I should not waste my time in writing you this sort of rhyme. I strive to paint things as they are, of realism the true apostle. All flowery metaphors I bar, nor call the homely thrush a throstle. Such synonyms would make me smile, and so they would have made Carlyle. My style may be, at times I own, a trifle cryptic or abstruse. In this I do not stand alone, and need but mention in excuse 1,000 world-familiar names, from Meredith to Henry James. From these my fruitless fancy roams to Aesop's or La Fontaine's fable, from Doyle's or Heman's stately Holmes to t'other of the breakfast table. Like Galahad, I wish in vain my wit were as the wit of twain. Had I but Whitman's rugged skill, and managed to escape the censor, the accuracy of a Mill, the reason of a Herbert Spencer, the literary talents even of Sidney Lee or Leslie Stephen, the power of Patmore's placid pen, or Watson's gift of execration, the sugar of La Gallienne, or Algernon's alliteration. One post there is I'd not be lost in, though I might find it most exhaustin'. Some day, if I but study hard, the public, vanquished by my pen'll acclaim me as a minor bard, like Norman Gale or Mrs. Meynell, and listen to my lyre a rippling, imperial banjo spasms like Kipling. Were I like him a syndicate which publishers would put their trust in, a Walter Pater up to date, or flippant scholar like Augustine, with pen as light as lark or squirrel, I'd love to kipple, pate, and birrel. So don't ignore me. If you should, 'twill touch me to the very heart, oh, to be as much misunderstood as once was Andrea del Sarto, unrecognized, to toil away like millet, not, of course, melees. And pray for morals do not look in this unique agglomeration, this unpretentious little book of infelicitous quotation. I deem you foolish if you do, and Mr. Arnold thinks so too. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Abroad by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Anthony Joseph. Abroad is where we tourists spend in divers unalluring ways the brief occasional weekend or annual Easter holidays, and earn the not ill-founded charge of being lunatics at large. Abroad we lose our self-respect, wear whiskers, let our teeth protrude, consider any garb correct, and no display of temper rude, descending when we cross the foam to depths we dare not plumb at home. Small wonder that the natives gaze with hostile eyes at foreign freaks, who patronize their passion plays in lemon-colored chessboard breeks, an opera glass about each neck, and on each head a cap of check. Abroad, where needy younger sons, when void the parents' treasure chest, take refuge from insistent duns at urgent relatives' request, to live upon their slender wits, or sums some maiden aunt remits. Abroad whence, with a wisdom rare, regardless of nostalgic pains, the weary New York millionaire retires with his oil-gotten gains, and learns how deep a pleasure 'tis to found our public libraries. For ours is the primeval clan, from which all lesser lights descend. Is Crockett not our countryman, and call we not Corelli friend? Our brotherhood has bred the brain whose offspring bear the brand of Cain. Though nowadays we seldom hear Miss Proctor, who mislaid a chord, or Tennyson, the poet peer, who came into the garden moored. Though Burns be dead, and Keats unread, we have a prophet still instead. And so we stare with nose in air, and speak in condescending tone of foreigners whose climes compare so favorably with our own, and aliens we cannot applaud, who call themselves at home abroad. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
United States of America by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Mapstone. This is the country of the free, the cocktail and the 10-cent chew, where you're as good a man as me, and I'm a better man than you. Oh, liberty, how free we make, freedom, what liberties we take. 'Tis here the startled tourist meets, mid clanging of 1,000 bells, the railway running through the streets, skyscraping flats and vast hotels, where rest on the resplendent floors the necessary cuspidors. And here you may encounter too the pauper immigrants in shoals, the Swede, the German, and the Jew, the Irishman who rules the polls, and is employed to keep the peace of venal and corrupt police. They are so busy here, you know, they have no time at all for play. Each morning to their work they go, and stay there all the livelong day. Their dreams of happiness depend on making more than they can spend. The ladies of this land are all developed to a pitch sublime, some inches over 6 foot tall, with perfect figures all the time. For further notice of their looks, see Mr. Dana Gibson's books. And if they happen to possess sufficient balance at the bank, they have the chance of saying yes to needy foreigners of rank. The future dukes of all the earth are half American by birth. Moral: a dot combining cash and charms is worth 1,000 coats of arms. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Great Britain by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Mapstone. The British are a chilly race. The Englishman is thin and tall. He screws an eyeglass in his face and talks with a reluctant drawl. Good gracious, this is deuced slow. By Jove, oh Demi, don't you know? The English woman everywhere a meed of admiration wins. She has a crown of silken hair, and quite the loveliest of skins. Go forth and seek an English maid, your trouble will be well repaid. Where Britain's banner is unfurled, there's room for nothing else beside. She owns 1/4 of the world, and still she is not satisfied. The Briton thinks himself by birth to be the lord of all the earth. Some call his manners wanting, or his sense of humour poor, and yet, whatever he is striving for, he as a rule contrives to get. His methods may be much to blame, but he arrives there just the same. Moral: if you can't get your wish, you bet it doesn't much matter how you get it. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Scotland by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Mapstone. In Scotland all the people wear red hair and freckles, and one sees the men in women's dresses there, with stout décolleté low-neck knees. Eblins, ye dinna ken a doot, we're unco good, so hoot man, hoot. They love to whisky and to kirk, I don't know which they like the most. They aren't the least afraid of work, no sense of humour can they boast. And you require an axe to coax the canny Scot to see your jokes. They play an instrument they call the bagpipes, and the sound of these is reminiscent of the squall of infant pigs attacked by bees. Music that might drive cats away, or make reluctant chickens lay. Moral: wear kilts, and though men look askance, go out and give your knees a chance. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Ireland by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Kerry Adams, your book voice. Ireland. The Irishman is never quite contented with his little lot. He's ever thirsting for a fight. A grievance he has always got, and all his energy is bent on trying not to pay his rent. He lives upon a frugal fare, the few potatoes that he digs, and hospitality loves to share, his bedroom with his wife and pigs, but cannot settle even here, and gets evicted once a year. In order to amuse himself, at any time when things are slack, he takes his gun down from the shelf and shoots a landlord in the back. If he's lucky in the chase, he may contrive to bag a brace. Moral: procure a grievance and a gun, and you can have no end of fun. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Wales by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Kerry Adams. Your book voice. Wales. The natives of the land of Wales are not a very truthful lot, and the imagination fails to paint the language they have got. Bedesicoid, rounded no, dof geflauri las quinem dot. Moral: if you must talk, then do it, pray, in an intelligible way. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
China by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Anthony Joseph. The Chinaman from early youth is by his wise preceptors taught to have no dealings with the truth. In fact, romancing is his forte. In juggling words he takes the prize by the sheer beauty of his lies. For laundry work he has a knack. He takes in shirts and makes them blue. When he omits to send them back, he takes his customers in too. He must be ranked in the elite of those whose hobby is deceit. For ladies, 'tis the fashion here to pinch their feet and make them small, which to the civilized idea is not a proper thing at all. Our modern Western women's taste in pinching leans towards the waist. The Chinese Empire is the field where foreign missionaries go. A poor result their labors yield, and they have little fruit to show. For if you would convert one lung, you have to catch him very young. The Chinaman has got a creed and a religion of his own, and would be much obliged indeed if you could leave his soul alone. And he prefers, which may seem odd, his own to other people's God. Yet still the missionary tries to point him out his wickedness, until the badgered natives rise, and there's one missionary less. Then foreign powers step in, you see, and ask for an indemnity. Moral: adhere to facts, avoid romance, and you a clergyman may be. To lie is wrong, except perchance in matters of diplomacy. And when you start out to convert, make certain that you don't get hurt. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
France by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org. The natives here remark, Mon Dieu, que voulez-vous? Comment ça va? Sapristi. Par exemple, un pont. Tiens donc, mais qu'est-ce que ça? They shave one portion of their dogs and live exclusively on frogs. They get excited very quickly, and crowds will gather before long. If you should stand and wave your stick and shout, "À bas le présidente!" Still more amusing would it be to say, "Conspuez la patrie!" The French are so polite, you know, they take their hats off very well. And should they tread upon your toe, remark, "Pardon, mademoiselle," and you would gladly bear the pain to see them make that bow again. Their ladies too have got a way, which even curates can't resist. 'Twould make an older man feel gay, or soothe a yellow journalist. And then the things they say are so extremely, well, in fact, you know. Moral: the closest scrutiny can find no morals here of any kind. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Germany by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Mapstone. The German is a stolid soul, and finds best suited to his taste a pipe with an enormous bowl, a Fraulein with an ample waist. He loves his beer, his Kaiser, and Donner und Blitz, his fatherland. He's perfectly contented if he listens in the opera house to Wagner's well-concealed motif, or waltzes of the nimble Strauss, and all discordant bands he sends abroad to soothe his foreign friends. When he is glad at anything, he cheers like a dyspeptic goat. Hoch, hoch, you'd think him suffering from some affliction of the throat. A disagreeable noise, 'tis true, but pleases him and don't hurt you. Moral. A glass of lager underneath the bough, a long churchwarden and an ample frau, beside me sitting in a beer garden. Ach, Biergarten were paradise enow. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Holland by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Mapstone. This country is extremely flat, just like your father's head, and were it not for dykes and things like that, there would not be much country there. For if these banks should broken be, what now is land would soon be sea. So any child who glory seeks, and in a dyke observes a hole, must hold his finger there for weeks, and keep the water from its goal, until the local plumbers come, or other persons who can plumb. The Hollanders have somehow got the name of Dutch, why goodness knows, but Mrs. Hollander is not a duchess as you might suppose. Meneer van Thunderpump is much more used to style her his Old Dutch. Their cities' names are somewhat odd, but much in vogue with golfing men, who miss a putt or slice a sod, whose thought I would not dare to pen. "Oh, Rotterdam," they can exclaim, and blamelessly resume the game. The Dutchman's dress is very neat. He minds his little flock of goats in cotton blouse, and on his feet he dons a pair of wooden boats. He evidently does not trust those dykes I mentioned not to bust. He has the reputation, too, of being what is known as slim, which merely means he does to you what you had hoped to do to him. He has a business head, that's all, and takes some beating, does Paul. Moral. Avoid a country where the sea may any day drop into tea, remembering that at golf one touch of bunker makes the whole world Dutch. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Iceland by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Kerry Adams, your book voice. Iceland. The climate is intensely cold. Wild curates would not drag me there, not though they brought great bags of gold and piled them underneath my chair. If 20 bishops bade me go, I should decidedly say no. Moral: if every man has got his price, as generally is agreed, you will, by taking my advice, let yours be very large indeed. Corruption is not nice at all, unless the bribe be far from small. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Italy by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Mapstone. In Italy the sky is blue, the native loafs and lolls about. He's nothing in the world to do, and does it fairly well, no doubt. Italians are disinclined to honest work of any kind. I like Chianti wine he drinks, and fancies it extremely good. It tastes like Stephen's blue-black inks, while macaroni is his food. I think it must be rather hard to eat one's breakfast by the yard. And when he leaves his country for some northern climate, 'tis his dream to be an organ grinder or retail bacilli in ice cream. The French or German student terms these creatures parasites or germs. Sometimes an anarchist is he, and wants to slay a king or queen, so with some dynamite, maybe, concocts a murderous machine. Here goes, he shouts, for freedom's sake, then blows himself up by mistake. Naples and Florence both repay a visit, and if fortune takes your toddling little feet that way, do stop a moment at the lakes. While should you go to Rome, I hope, you'll leave your card upon the Pope. Moral: don't work too hard, but use a wise discretion. Adopt the least laborious profession. Don't be an anarchist, but if you must, don't let your bombshell prematurely bust. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Japan by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by mleigh. Inhabitants of far Japan are happy as the day is long to sit behind a paper fan and sing a kind of tuneless song, desisting every little while to have a public bath or smile. The members of the fairer sex are clad in a becoming dress, one garment reaching from their necks down to the ankles, more or less. Behind each dainty ear they wear a cherry blossom in their hair. If imitation's flattery, we learn it at our mother's lap. A flatterer by birth must be our clever little friend the Jap, who does whatever we can do, and does it rather better too. Moral: be happy all the time and plan to wash as often as you can. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Portugal by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Sadiya Bindir. You are requested, if you please, to note that here a people lives, referred to as the Portuguese, a fact which naturally gives the funny man a good excuse to call his friend a Portugoose. Moral: avoid the obvious if you can, and never be a funny man. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Russia by Harry Graham, read for LibriVox.org by Marianne. The Russian Empire, as you see, is governed by an autocrat, a sort of human target he, for anarchists to practice at. And much relieved most people are, not to be lodging with the Tsar. The Russian lets his whiskers grow, smokes cigarettes at mealtimes and imbibes more vodka than il faut. A habit which I understand enables him with ease to tell his name which nobody could spell. The climate here is cold with snow, and you go driving in a sleigh, with bells and all the rest, you know, just like a Henry Irving play, while all around you glare the eyes of secret officers and spies. The Russian prisons have no drains, no windows or such things as that. You have no playthings there but chains, and no companion but a rat. When once behind the dungeon door, your friends don't see you any more. I further could enlarge, 'tis true, but fear my trembling pen confines. I have no wish to travel to Siberia and work the mines. In Russia you must write with care, or the police will take you there. If you hold morbid views about a monarch's premature decease, you only need a "Hi, look out, here comes an agent of police." In future my address will be Siberia, cell 63. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Spain by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Carrie Adams. Your Book Voice. Spain. 'Tis here the Spanish onion grows, and they eat garlic all the day. So if you have a tender nose, 'tis best to go the other way. Or else you may discern at length the fact that onion is strength. The chestnuts flourish in this land, quite good to eat, as you will find, for they are not, you understand, the ancient after-dinner kind that Yankees are accustomed to from Mr. Chauncey M. Depew. The Spanish lady, by the by, is an alluring person who has got a bright and flashing eye, and knows just how to use it, too. It's quite a treat to see her meet the proud hidalgo on the street. He wears a sort of soft felt hat, a dagger and a cloak, you know, just like the wicked villains that we met in plays of long ago, who sneaked about with aspect glum, remarking, "Ha! A time will come." His blood of blue cerulean hue runs in his veins like liquid fire, and he can be most rude if you should rob him of his heart's desire. "Caramba!" he exclaims, and whack! His dagger perforates your back. If you should care to patronize a bullfight, as you will no doubt, you'll see a horse with blinded eyes be very badly mauled about. By such a scene a weak inside is sometimes rather sorely tried. And if the bull is full of fun, the horse is generally gored. So then they fetch another one, or else the first one is encored. The humor of the sport, of course, is not so patent to the horse. Moral: be kind to every bull you meet. Remember how the creature feels. Don't wink at ladies in the street, and don't make speeches after meals. And lastly, I need not explain, if you're a horse, don't go to Spain. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Switzerland by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Lawley. This atmosphere is pure ozone. To climb the hills you promptly start, unless you happen to be prone to palpitations of the heart, in which case swarming up the Alps brings on a bad attack of pulps. The nicest method is to stay quite comfortably down below, and from the steps of your chalet watch other people upwards go. Then you can buy an alpenstock and scratch your name upon a rock. Moral: don't do fatiguing things which you can pay another man to do. Let friends assume they may be wrong, that you each year ascend Mont Blanc. Some things you can pretend you've done, and climbing up the Alps is one. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Turkey by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Steve Nelson. The Sultan of the Purple East is quite a cynic in his way, and really doesn't mind the least his nickname of Abdul the Nay. I might perhaps come in for blame if I divulged this monarch's name. The Turk is such a kindly man, but his ideas of sport are crude. He to the poor Armenian is not intentionally rude, but still it is his heartless habit to treat him as we treat the rabbit. If he wants bracing up a bit, his pleasing custom is to take a hatchet and commit a series of atrocities. I should not fancy, after dark, to meet him, say, in Regent's Park. A deeply married man is he. Early and often is his rule. He practices polygamy directly after leaving school, and so arranges that his wives live happy but secluded lives. If they attend a public place, they have to do so in disguise, and so conceal one half of their face that nothing but a pair of eyes suggests the hidden charm that lurks beneath the veils of Lady Turks. Then too in Turkey all the men smoke water pipes and cross their legs. They watch their harem as a hen that guards her first attempt at eggs. If you don't know what harems are, just run and ask your dear papa. Wives of great men oft remind us we should make our wives sublime. But the years advancing find us vainly working overtime. We could minimize our work by the methods of the Turk. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Dreamland by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Sadiya Bindir. Here you will see strange happenings, with absolutely placid eyes. If all your uncles sprouted wings, you would not feel the least surprise. The oddest things that you can do don't seem a bit absurd to you. You go in Dreamland to a ball, and suddenly are shocked to find that you have nothing on at all, but somehow no one seems to mind. And naturally you don't care if they can bear what you can bear. Then, in a moment, you're pursued by engines on a railway track. Your legs are tied, your feet are glued. The train comes snorting down your back. One last attempt at flight you make, and so in bed perspiring wake. You feel so free from weight of cares, that if the staircase you should climb, you gaily mount, not single stairs, but whole battalions at a time. My metaphor is mixed, maybe. I quote from Shakespeare, as you see. If you should eat too much, you pay in dreams the penalty for this. A nightmare carries you away and drops you down a precipice. Down, down, until, with sudden smack, you strike the mattress with your back. Moral: at meals decline to be a beast. Too much is better than a feast. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Stageland by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. The customs of this land have all been published in a bulky tome. The author is a man they call Jerome. So lest on his preserves I poach, this subject I refuse to broach. Moral: the moral here is plain to see. If true the hackneyed witticism which stamps originality as undetected plagiarism, what a vocation I have missed as undetected plagiarist. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Loverland by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Andrea Atwood. This is the land where minor bards and other lunatics repair to live in houses made of cards, or build their castles in the air, to feed on hope and idly dream that things are really what they seem. The natives are a motley lot, of every age and creed and race, but each inhabitant has got the same expression on his face. They look, when this their features fills, like angels with internal chills. The lover sits the livelong day quite inarticulate of speech. He simply brims with things to say, alas, the words he cannot reach, and silent lets occasion pass, feeling a fulminating ass. It is the lady lover's wont to blush and look demure or coy, to say, you mustn't, and oh, don't, or please leave off, you naughty boy. But this, of course, is just her way. She wouldn't wish you to obey. The lover, in a trembling voice, demands the hand of his lovey, and begs the lady of his choice to share some cottage by the sea. With her a prison would be nice, a coal cellar a paradise. Love in a cottage sounds so well, but oh, my too impatient bride, no drainage and a constant smell of something being over-fried is not the sort of atmosphere that makes for wedded bliss, my dear. And when the bills are rather high, and when the money's rather low, see poor Virginia sit and sigh, and ask why Paul must grumble so. He slams the door and strides about, and through the window love creeps out. 'Tis said that Cupid blinds our sight with fire of passion from above, nor ever bids us see aright the many faults in those we love. Ah no, I deem it otherwise, for lovers have the clearest eyes. They see the faults, the failures, and the great temptations, and they know, although they cannot understand, that they would have the loved one so. Believe me, love is never blind, his smiling eyes are wise and kind. Though lovers quarrel, yet I ween 'tis but to make it up again. The sunshine seems the more serene that follows after April rain. And love should lead, if love be true, to perfect understanding too. If in our hearts this love beats strong, we shall not ever seek to earn forgiveness for some fancied wrong, nor need to pardon in return, but learn this lesson as we live, to understand is to forgive. And all you little girls and boys will find this out yourselves some day, when you have done with childish toys, and put your infant books away. Ah, then I pray that hand in hand you tread the paths of Loverland. Moral: don't fall in love, but when you do, take care that he or she does too. And lastly, to misquote the bard, if you must love, don't love too hard. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Homeland by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Anthony Joseph. The tour is over, we must part, our mutual journey at an end. Oh, bid farewell with aching heart to guide, philosopher, and friend. And note as you remark goodbye the kindly tear that dims his eye. The tour is ended, sad but true. No more together may we roam. We turn our lonely footsteps to the spot that's known as home sweet home. Nor time nor temper can afford a more protracted trip abroad. O home, where we must always be so hopelessly misunderstood, where waits a tactless family to tell us things for our own good, where relatives with searchlight eyes can penetrate our choicest lies, where all our kith and kin combine to prove that we are worse than rude if we should criticize the wine or make complaints about the food. Thank goodness then, to quote the poem, thank goodness there's no place like home. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Childish Complaints. Prelude by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Andrea Atwood. By way of advertisement. I have no knowledge of disease, no notion what ill health may be, since housemaid's throat and smoker's knees mean something different to me to what they do to other folk. This is, I vow, no vulgar joke. Of course, when young I had complaints, and little childish accidents. For twice I ate a box of paints, and once I swallowed 18 pence. N.B. I missed the paints a lot, but got the coins back on the spot. But no practitioner has seen my tongue since then down to the present, and I, alas, have never been an interesting convalescent. Ah, why am I alone denied the humour of a week inside? Why is it? I will tell you why. A certain mixture is to blame. One day for fun I chanced to try a bottle of, what is the name? That thing they advertise a lot. Oh, what a memory I've got. It's stuff you must of course have seen, retailed in bottles, tins or pots. In cakes or little pills, I mean. Oh, goodness me, I've bought such lots, that I am really much to blame for not remembering the name. Still, let me recommend a keg, with maker's name be sure above it. 'Tis sweeter than a new-mown egg, and village idiots simply love it. Old persons sit and scream for it. I do so hope you'll try a bit. So efficacious is this stuff, its virtue and its strength are such, one single bottle is enough. In fact, at times 'tis far too much. The patient dies in frightful pain, or else survives and tries again. An aunt of mine felt anyhow, all kind of odd and gone to bits, had freckles badly too, but now she doesn't have a thing that fits. She's just as strong as any horse, though still an invalid, of course. I had an uncle too that way, his health was in a dreadful plight, would often spend a sleepless day, and lie unconscious half the night. He took 2 bottles, large and small, and now he has no health at all. The moral plainly bids you buy this stuff, whose name I have forgotten. You won't regret it, if you try. My memory is simply rotten. My funds will profit in addition, since I enjoy a small commission. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Number 1, Appendicitis, by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org. I've got appendicitis in my appendicite, but I don't mind, because I find I'm quite cut out for it. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Number 2, Whooping Cough, by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org. If only I had the whooping cough, I'd join a circus troupe, and folks would clamor at the door and pay a shilling, even more, to see me whoop the whoop. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Number 3, Measles, by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org. Of illnesses like chickenpox and measles I've had lots. I do not like them much, you know. They are not really nice, although they're rather nice in spots. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Number 4, Adenoids, by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org. A Cockney maid produced such snores, folks left the city to avoid them, and all because, she said, it was her adenoids that had annoyed them. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Number 5, Croup, by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org. I had the croup in years gone by, and that is why today, although no longer youthful, I am still a croupier. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Mother-Wit by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Lawley. When wilful little Willie Black threw all the tea things at his mother, she murmured as she hurled them back, "One good tea urn deserves another." End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Uncle Joe by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Adrian Stevens. Poor Uncle Joe has gone, you know, to rest beyond the stars. I miss him. Oh, I miss him so. He had such good cigars. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Aunt Eliza by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Adrian Stevens. In the drinking well, which the plumber built her, Aunt Eliza fell. We must buy a filter. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Absent-mindedness by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Carrie Adams, your book voice. Absent-mindedness. Absent-minded Edward Brown drove his lady into town. Suddenly the horse fell down. Mrs. Ned, newlywed, threw a fit and lay for dead. Edward, lacking in resource, chafed the fetlocks of his horse, sitting with unpleasant force, just like lead, on the head of the prostrate Mrs. Ned. She demanded a divorce, jealous of the favored horse. Edward had it shot, of course. Years have sped, she and Ned drive a motor now instead. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
John by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Adrian Stevens. John, across the broad Atlantic, tried to navigate a bark, but he met an unromantic and extremely hungry shark. John, I blame his childhood's teachers, thought to treat this as a lark, ignorant of how these creatures do delight to bite a bark. Said, "This animal's a bore," and, with a scornful sort of grin, handled an adjacent oar and chucked it underneath the chin. At this unexpected juncture, which he had not reckoned on, Mr. Shark, he made a puncture in the bark, and then in John. Sad am I, and sore at thinking, John had on some clothes of mine. I can almost see them shrinking, washed repeatedly in brine. I shall never cease regretting that I lent my hat to him, for I fear a thorough wetting cannot well improve the brim. Oh, to know a shark is browsing boldly, blandly on my boots, coldly, cruelly carousing on the choicest of my suits. Creatures I regard with loathing, who can calmly take their fill of one's Jaeger underclothing. Down, my aching heart, be still. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Baby by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by mleigh. Baby roused its father's ire by a cold and formal lisp, so he placed it on the fire and reduced it to a crisp. Mother said, "Oh, stop a bit. This is overdoing it." End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Cat. Advice to the Young by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org. My children, you should imitate the harmless, necessary cat, who eats whatever's on his plate and doesn't even leave the fat, who never stays in bed too late or does immoral things like that. Instead of saying shan't or bosh, he'll sit and wash and wash and wash. When shadows fall and the lights grow dim, he sits beneath the kitchen stair, regardless as to life and limb. A shady lair he chooses there, and if you tumble over him, he simply loves to hear you swear, and, while bad language you prefer, he'll sit and purr and purr and purr. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Virtue is its own reward by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Andrea Atwood. Virtue its own reward? Alas, and what a poor one as a rule. Be virtuous, and life will pass like one long term of Sunday school. No prospect truly could one find more unalluring to the mind. The model child has got to keep his fingers and his garments white. In church he may not go to sleep, nor ask to stop up late at night. In fact, he must not ever do a single thing he wishes to. He may not paddle in his boots like naughty children at the sea. The sweetness of forbidden fruits is not, alas, for such as he. He watches with pathetic eyes his weaker brethren make mud pies. He must not answer back, oh no, however rude grown-ups may be, but keep politely silent, though he brim with scathing repartee, for nothing is considered worse than scoring off mamma or nurse. He must not eat too much at meals, nor scatter crumbs across the floor. However vacuous he feels, he may not pass his plate for more, not though his every organ ache for further slabs of Christmas cake. He is commanded not to waste the fleeting hours of childhood's days by giving way to any taste for circuses or matinees. For him the entertainments planned are lectures on the Holy Land. He never reads a storybook by Ryder H. or Winston C. In vain upon his desk you'd look for tales by Arthur Conan D. Nor could you find upon his shelf the works of Rudyard or myself. He always fears that he may do some action that is in for dig, and so he lives his short life through in the most noxious role of prig. Short life, I say, for it's agreed the good die very young indeed. Ah me, how sad it is to think he could have lived like me or you, with practice and a taste for drink. Our joys he might have known, he too, and shared the pleasure we have had in being gloriously bad. The naughty boy gets much delight from doing what he should not do, but as such conduct isn't right, he sometimes suffers for it too. Yet what's a spanking to the fun of leaving vital things undone? The wicked flourish like the bay, at cards or love they always win, good fortune dogs their steps all day, they fatten while the good grow thin. The righteous man has much to bear, the bad becomes a billionaire. For, though he be the greatest sham, luck favours him his whole life through. At bridge he always makes a slam, after declaring "San tout," and every deal his fate has planned, 100 aces in his hand. Yet it is always just the same, he somehow manages to win, by mere good fortune, any game that he might be competing in. At golf no bunker breaks his club, for him the green provides no rub. At billiards, too, he flukes away, with quite unnecessary side. No matter what he tries to play, for him the pockets open wide. He never finds both balls in balk, or makes miscues for want of chalk. He swears, he very likely bets. He even wears a flaming necktie, inhales Egyptian cigarettes, and has a mens ensconcia recti. Yet, spite of all, one must confess that naught succeeds like his excess. There is no occasion to be just, no need for motives that are fine, to be a director of a trust, or manager of a combine. Your corner is a public curse, perhaps, but it will fill your purse. Then stride across the public's bones, crush all opponents under you, till you rise on stepping stones of their dead selves, and when you do, the widow's and the orphan's tears shall comfort your declining years. Myself, how lucky I must be, that need not fear so gross an end, since fortune has not favoured me with many £1,000,000 to spend. Still, did that fickle dame relent, I'd show you how they should be spent. I am not saint enough to feel my shoulder ripen to a wing, nor have I wits enough to steal his title from the copper king. And there's a vasty gulf between the man I am and might have been. But though at dinner I may take too much of hide-sick, extra dry, and underneath the table make my simple couch just where I lie, my mode of roosting on the floor is just a trick and nothing more. And when, not wisely, but too well, my thirst I am contrived to quench, the stories I am apt to tell may be perhaps a trifle French. For 'tis in anecdote, no doubt, that what's bred in the bone comes out. It does not render me unfit to give advice both wise and right, because I do not follow it myself as closely as I might. There's nothing that I wouldn't do to point the proper path to you. And this I'm sure of more or less, and trust that you will all agree, the elements of happiness consist in being just like me, no sinner, nor a saint perhaps, but, well, the very best of chaps. Share the experience I have had, consider all I've known and seen, and don't be good, and don't be bad, but cultivate a golden mean. What makes existence really nice is virtue with a dash of vice. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Enough is as good as a feast by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Peter Yearsley. What is enough? An idle dream. One cannot have enough, I swear, of ices, or meringues and cream, nougat or chocolate eclairs, of oysters or of caviar, of prawns or pâté de foie gras. Who would not willingly forsake kindred and home without a fuss, for icing from a birthday cake, or juicy fat asparagus, and journey over countless seas for new potatoes and green peas? They say that a contented mind is a continual feast, but where the mental frame, and how to find, which can with turtle soup compare. No mind, however full of ease, could be continual toasted cheese. For dinner have a sole to eat, some Perrier Jouet, 92, an entrée then, and with the meat a bottle of Lafitte will do. A quail, a glass of port, just one, liqueurs and coffee, and you've done. Your tastes may be of simpler type, a homely pint of half and half, an onion and a dish of tripe, or headpiece of the kindly calf. Cruel, perhaps, but then, you know, faut tout souffrir pour être beau. 'Tis a mistake to eat too much of any dishes but the best, and you, of course, should never touch a thing you know you can't digest. For instance, lobster. If you do, well, I'm a-mayonnaised at you. Let this be your heraldic crest, a bottle chargé of champagne, a chicken gorged with salad dressed. Below, this motto to explain: enough is very good, maybe. Too much is good enough for me. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Don't Buy a Pig in a Poke by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Peter Yearsley. Unscrupulous pigmongers will attempt to wheedle and to coax the ignorant young housewife till she purchases her pigs in pokes, beasts that have got a lurid past, or else are far too good to last. So should you not desire to be the victim of a cruel hoax, then promise me, promise me, you will not purchase pigs in pokes. 'Twould be an error just as big to poke your purchase in a pig. Too well I know the bitter cost to turn this subject off with jokes. How many fortunes have been lost by men who purchased pigs in pokes? Think on such when you would talk with mouths that are replete with pork. And after dinner, round the fire, astride of grandpa's rugged knee, implore your bored but patient sire to tell you what a poke may be, the fact he might disclose to you, which is far more than I can do. The moral of the pigs and pokes is not to make your choice too quick. In purchasing a book of jokes, pray poke around and take your pick. Who knows how rich a mental meal the covers of this book conceal? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Learn to Take Things Easily by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by mleigh. To these few words, it seems to me, a wealth of sound instruction clings. Oh, learn to take things easily, especially other people's things, and time will make your fingers deft at what is known as petty theft. Fools and their money soon must part, and you can help this on, maybe, if in the kindness of your heart you learn to take things easily, and be with little education a prince of misappropriation. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A Rolling Stone Gathers No Moss by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Peter Yearsley. I never understood, I own, what anybody with a soul could mean by offering a stone this needless warning not to roll. And what inducement there can be to gather moss, I fail to see. I'd sooner gather anything, like primroses or news perhaps, or even wool when suffering a momentary mental lapse, but could forego my share of moss, nor ever realise the loss. 'Tis a botanical disease, and worthy of remark as such, lending a dignity to trees, to ruins a romantic touch, a timely adjunct, I've no doubt, but not worth writing home about. Of all the stones I ever met in calm repose upon the ground, I really never found one yet with a desire to roll around. Theirs is a stationary roll, a joke and feeble on the whole. But if I were a stone, I swear I'd sooner move and view the world than sit and grow the greenest hair that ever nature combed and curled. I see no single saving grace in being known as Mossy Face. Instead, I might prove useful for a weapon in the hand of crime, a paperweight, a milestone, or a missile at election time. In each capacity I could do quite incalculable good. When well directed from the pit, I might promote a welcome death, if fortunate enough to hit some budding Hamlet or Macbeth who twice each day the playhouse fills. For further notice, see small bills. At concerts, too, if you prefer, I could prevent your growing deaf by silencing the amateur before she reached that upper F, or else, in lieu of half a brick, restrain some local cubalic. Then, human stones, take my advice, as you should always do indeed. This proverb may be very nice, but don't you pay it any heed. And though you make the critics cross, roll on, and never mind the moss. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. It is never too late to mend, by Harry Graham, read for LibriVox.org by Peter Yearsley. Since it can never be too late to change your life, or else renew it, let the unpleasant process wait until you are compelled to do it. The state provides, and gratis too, establishments for such as you. Remember this, and pluck up heart, that, be you publican or parson, your every art must have a start, from petty larceny to arson. And even in the burglar's trade the cracksman is not born but made. So if in your career of crime you fail to carry out some coup, then try again a second time, and yet again, until you do. And don't despair or fear the worst, because you get found out at first. Perhaps the battle will not go on all occasions to the strongest. You may be fairly certain, though, that he laughs last who laughs the longest. So keep a good reserve of laughter, which may be found of use hereafter. Believe me that, howe'er well meant, a good resolve is always brief. Don't let your precious hours be spent in turning over a new leaf. Such leaves, like nature's, soon decay, and then are only in the way. The road to, well, a certain spot, a road of very fair dimensions, has, so the proverb tells us, got a parquet floor of good intentions. Take care, in your desire to please, you do not add a brick to these. For there may come a moment when you shall be mended willy-nilly with many more misguided men whose skill is undermined with skilly. Till then, procrastinate, my friend. It never is too late to mend. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. A Bad Workman Complains of His Tools, by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Peter Yearsley. This pen of mine is simply grand. I never loved a pen so much. This paper underneath my hand is really a delight to touch. and never in my life, I think, did I make use of finer ink. The subject upon which I write is everything that I could choose. I seldom knew my wits more bright, more cosmopolitan my views, nor ever did my head contain so surplus a supply of brain. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Don't Look a Gift Horse in the Mouth by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Peter Yearsley. Don't look a gift horse in the mouth. I knew a man who lived down south. He thought this maxim to defy. He looked a gift horse in the mouth. The gift horse bit him in the eye. And while the steed enjoyed his bite, my southern friend mislaid his sight. Now, had this foolish man that day observed the gift horse in the heel, it might have kicked his brains away, but that's a loss he would not feel. Because, you see, need I explain, my southern friend has got no brain. When anyone to you presents a poodle or a pocket knife, a set of ping-pong instruments, a banjo, or a lady wife, 'tis churlish, as I understand, to grumble that they're second-hand. And he who termed ingratitude as worser nor a servant's tooth was evidently well imbued with all the elements of truth, while he who said uneasy lies the tooth that wears a crown was wise. One must be poor, George Eliot said, to know the luxury of giving. So, too, one really should be dead to realise the joy of living. I'd sooner be, I don't know which. I'd like to be alive and rich. This book may be a gift horse too, and one you surely ought to prize. If so, I beg you, read it through with kindly and uncaptious eyes, not grumbling because this particular line doesn't happen to scan, and this one doesn't rhyme. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. Potpourri by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Peter Yearsley. There are many more maxims to which I would like to accord a front place, but, alas, I have got to omit a whole lot for the lack of available space, and the rest I am forced to boil down and condense to the following essence of sound without sense. Now, the pitcher that journeys too oft to the well will get broken at last, but you'll find it a fact that, by using some tact, such a danger as this can be passed. There's an obvious way, and a simple, you'll own, which is, if you're a pitcher, to let well alone. Half a loafer is never well bred, and self-praise is a dangerous thing. And the mice are at play when the cat is away for a moment inspecting a king. Though if care kills the cat, as the proverbs declare, it is right to suppose that the king will take care. Don't halloo till you're out of the wood, when a stitch in good time will save 9, while a bird in the hand is worth 2, understand, in the bush that needs no good wine. Though the 2, if they can sing but won't, have been known, by an accurate aim, to be killed with 1 stone. Never harness the cart to the horse, till the latter should be à la carte. Also birds of a feather come flocking together, because they can't well flock apart. You may cast any bread on the waters, I think, but unless I'm mistaken, you can't make it sink. It is only the fool who remarks that there can't be a fire without smoke. Has he never yet learned how the gas can be turned on the best incombustible coke? Would you value a man by the checks on his suits, and forget que c'est le premier passbook qui coûte? Now, de mortuus nil nisi bonum is Latin, as everyone owns. If your domicile be near a mortuary, you should always avoid throwing bones. I would further remark, if I could, but I couldn't, that people residing in glasshouses shouldn't. You have heard of the punctual bird who was first in presenting his bill, but I pray you'll be firm and remember the worm had to get up much earlier still, so that if you can't rise in the morning, then don't, and be certain that where there's a will, there's a won't. You can give a bad name to a dog and hang him by way of excuse, whereas hunger, of course, is by far the best sauce for the gander as well as the goose. But you shouldn't judge anyone just by his looks, for a surfeit of broth ruins too many cooks. With the fact that necessity knows 9 points of the law, you'll agree. There are just as good fish to be found on a dish as you ever could catch in the sea. You should look, ere you leap, on a weasel asleep, and I've also remarked that still daughters run cheap. The much trodden on lane will turn, and a friend is in need of a friend, but the wisest of saws, like the camel's last straws, or the longest of worms, have an end. So, before out of patience a virtue you make, a decisive farewell of these maxims we'll take. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Bill by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Mapstone. Told by the hospital orderly. At Modder, where I met him first, I thought as how old Bill was dead. A splinter from a shell what bust had fetched him somewheres in the head. But there, it takes a deal to kill them thick-thatched sort of blokes like Bill. In the field hospital next day, the doctors was a-making out the casualty returns, and they comes up and pulls old Bill about. Old Colonel Wilkes, he turns to me, "Report this dangerous," says he. But Bill, who must have heard it too, he calls the doctor quick as thought. "I'd take it kindly, sir, if you could keep me out of the report, for though I'm it and it severe, I doesn't want my friends to hear. I've an old mother way in Kent, who thinks the very world of me. I'd thank you if I wasn't sent as wounded dangerous," says he. "For if she hears I'm badly hit, I lay she won't get over it. At Landsman's Drift she lost a lad, with the 18th Hussars he fell. Poor soul, she'd take it mighty bad to think of losing me as well. So, please sir, if it's all the same, I'd ask you not to send my name." The Colonel bloke he thinks a bit. "Oh well," says he, "perhaps you're right. And now I'll come to look at it, I'll send you in as scalp wounds slight. Of course, it's wrong of me, but still, God bless you, sir, and thanks," says Bill. He didn't die, he scrambled through. They operated on his head, and God knows what they didn't do. Tripoded him, I think they said. I seed him Tuesday in Pall Mall, nor never knowed him look so well. Yes, Bill, he's going strong just now, in London and employed again, though it's a fact, he says, as how the doctors took out half his brain. Oh well, he won't have need of this. He's working at the War Office. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Legend of the Author by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Carrie Adams, your book voice. The Legend of the Author, a long way after Inglesby. When Anthony Adamson first went to school, the reception he got was decidedly cool. And because he was utterly hopeless at games, he was given all sorts of opprobrious names, which ranged the whole gamut from fathead to fool, for boys, as a rule, are what nurses call cruel. 'Tis their natural instinct, which nobody blames, any more than the habits peculiar to rabbits, to label a duffer old woman or muff, or some name calculated to cause him to suffer. They failed in their treatment this time on the whole, since our Anthony thoroughly pitied the role of the oaf who is muddied, for Kipling he'd studied, however strong-hearted, broad-limbed, and warm-blooded, who sits in a gaol quite deficient of soul, and as blind to the beauties of life as a mole. He was rather a curious boy, was this youth, and a bit of a prig, if you must know the truth, and his comrades considered him weird and uncouth, for he didn't much mind when they left him behind, and intent upon cricket, went off to the wicket. Some other less heating employment he'd find. And while his young playfellows fielded and batted, this curious fathead, ink-fingered, hair-matted, would take a new pen from his pocket and lick it, then into the ink bottle thoughtfully stick it, and chewing the holder, 'twas fashioned of gold, or at least so 'twas sold by a stationer bold, and at any rate furnished a good imitation, in deep rumination, with much mastication, and wonderful patience, await inspirations, and brilliant ideas would arrive on occasions, when frequently followed, the pen being swallowed, as up to his eyes in the ink-pot he wallowed. So all the day long and for half of the night would young Anthony Adamson nibble and write, with extravagant feelings of joy and delight. And it may sound absurd, but 'twas thus as I've heard, that he learnt to acquire the appropriate word, and although composition, which was his ambition, at first proved a trifle untamed and refractory, arrived in a while at evolving a style, which a Stevenson even might deem satisfactory. Now when Anthony A. was as yet in his teens, he began to take aim at the big magazines, with articles, verses, and little love scenes, and short stories he wrote, which he sent with a note, which I haven't the space nor the leisure to quote, containing a humble request and a hope, and some stamps and a clearly addressed envelope. Now a few of these got to the editor's desk, and he found them well written and quite picturesque, and he sighed to see talent like this go to waste on what couldn't appeal to the popular taste. For the public, you see, with a capital P, doesn't care what it reads, just so long as it be something really exciting, however bad writing, with wonderful heroes and villains like Neros, who, running as serials, wearing imperials, revel in bloodshed and bombast and fighting. So back to the author his manuscript went, although sometimes a friendly old editor sent an encouraging letter to say he'd do better to lower his style to the popular level. When Anthony proudly, of course not out loudly, but mentally told him to go to the devil. But a few of his articles never came back, and their whereabouts no one was able to track, for some persons who edited, can it be credited, finding it paid them, unduly mislaid them. Behavior most rare nowadays anywhere, and to every tradition entirely opposed, and grew fat on the numerous stamps he enclosed. Though to this I am really unable to swear, or at any rate haven't the courage to dare. Now when Anthony Adamson grew rather older, and wiser and bolder, and broader of shoulder, he thought he'd a fancy to write for the press. 'Tis a common idea with the young, more or less. And he saw himself doing critiques and reviewing the latest new books as they came from the printers, to set them on thrones or to smash them to splinters, to damn with faint praise or with eulogies raise, as he banned or he blessed, just whatever seemed best, to the wit and the wisdom of 23 winters. But when he had carefully read through the papers, arranged to the taste of our nation of drapers, and wisely as Solomon studied each column, an awful attack of despair and depression assailed him, and then, as he threw down his pen, he was forced to confess to no hope of success if he entered the great journalistic profession. For the only description of copy that pays in the journals that everyone reads nowadays is the personal matter, impertinent chatter, the tales of the tailor, the barber, the hatter, society small talk, and mere servants' hall talk, the sort of what's nobody's business at all talk, and those who can handle the latest big scandal with the taste of a thug and the tact of a vandal. Whatever society paper they write in can always provide what their readers delight in, an article vulgarly written which deals with the food that celebrities eat at their meals. To the popular intellect always appeals. People laugh themselves hoarse at the latest divorce, while a peer's breach of promise is comic, of course. How eager each face is, as everyone races, to read the details of the cruelty cases. And a magistrate's pun is considered good fun, and arouses the bench of reporters from torpor when it's at the expense of some broken-down pauper. So Anthony pondered the different ways of attaining and gaining the popular praise, and selected a score of his brightest essays, just enough for a book, which he hopefully took to some publishers, thinking perhaps they would look at what might, as he couldn't help modestly hinting, repay the expense and the trouble of printing. Now the publishers all were extremely polite, and encouraging quite, for they saw he could write. But the answer they gave him was always the same. You are not, so they said, in the least bit to blame, and your style is so good, be it well understood. We'd be happy to publish your work if we could. But alas, all the people who know are agreed. This is not what the public demands or would read. It is over the head of the people, they say. If you'd only write down to the popular level, once more he replied, they could go to the devil. The result to our author was not unexpected, and as on his failures he sadly reflected, he took out his pen and a nib he selected, then wrote, and his verses were studded with curses, this poem, the lay of the author rejected. The rejected author's cup comes from out a bitter bin. Constable won't take him up, Chambers will not take him in. Publishers, when interviewed, each, alas, in turn looks black. De la Rue is de la Rude. Nut is far too hard to crack. Author, humble as a vassal, he is feeling low as well. Sadly waits without the cassel, vainly tries to press the bell. Author, hourly growing leaner, finds each day his jokes more rare, asks the longman if he's greener, Spottiswoode to take the air. Author, blithe as lark each morning, finds each night his tale unheard, and when Frederick gives him warning, is not gay as any bird. Author, to his writings partial, musters their array in block, which the Simpkins will not marshal, and the Eliot will not stock. Though for little he be yearning, yet that little long he'll want, when the lane has got no turning, and the Richards will not grant. Now when Anthony's life it grew harder and harder, less coal in the cellar, less meat in the larder, he thought for a while, and at last, with a smile, he determined to sacrifice even his style. So he wrote just whatever came into his head, without any regard for the living or dead, or for what his friends thought or his enemies said. From his style he effaced, as incentives to waste, all the canons of grammar and even good taste. And so book after book after book he brought out, which you've probably read and you know all about. For the publishers bought them, and everyone thought them so splendidly vulgar that no one had ever read anything quite so improperly clever. He tried every style, from the fashion of Ouida's, his character being society's leaders, the heroine suited to middle-class readers. A governess she, who might well have been humbler, the hero a duke, an inveterate grumbler, and a guardsman who drank creme de menthe from a tumbler, to that of another more popular lady, and wrote about aristocrats who were shady, and showed that the persons you happen to meet in the very best houses are always effete, that they gamble all night in particular sets, and, oh, hasn't she said it, though can it be credited, have no intention of paying their debts. His best, which the critics said teemed with expression, was the one-volume novel, A Drunkard's Confession. The next, My Good Woman, a love tale, another. Most popular this, The Flirtations of Mother. And lastly, the crowning success of his life, How the Other Half Lives, by a baronet's wife. And the publishers now are all down on their knees, as they offer what fees he may happen to please. And success he discerns, as with rapture he learns, the amount that he earns from his royalty returns. N.B. I omit the last A here in royalty, for reasons of scansion and not from disloyalty. The moral of this is quite easy to see, if a popular author you're anxious to be. You won't care a digamma for truth or for grammar, be far from straight-laced upon questions of taste, and don't trouble to polish your style or to bevel, but always write down to the popular level. Be vulgar and smart, and you'll get to the heart of the persons directing the literary mart. And your writings must reach, it's a figure of speech, the, well, what shall we call it, compositor's devil. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Motriot by Harry Graham, read for LibriVox.org by Adrian Stevens. The Motriot, after Robert Browning. It was chickens, chickens all the way, with children crossing the road like mad. Police disguised in the hedgerows lay, stopwatches and large white flags they had, at 9 o'clock, oh, this very day. I broke the record to Tunbridge Wells, and I shouted aloud to all concerned, "Give room, good folk, do you hear my bells?" But my motor skidded and overturned, then exploded, and afterwards what smells! Alack! It was I rode over the son of a butcher, rolled him all of a heap. Naught man could do did I leave undone, and I thought the butcher's boys were cheap, but this poor man, 'twas his only one. There's nobody in my motor now, just a tangled car in the ditch upset, for the fun of the fair is, all allow, at the county court or better yet, by the very foot of the dock I trow. Thus I entered, and thus I go. In court the magistrate sternly said, 5 guineas fine, and the costs you owe. I might not question, so promptly paid. Henceforth I walk. I'm safer so. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The Ballad of the Artist by Harry Graham, read for LibriVox.org by Adrian Stevens. Archibald Ames is an artist and a widely renowned R.A., for albeit his pictures are thoroughly bad, the greatest success he has always had, and he makes his profession pay. He has no idea of proportion, no notion of colour or line, but perhaps for such there is little need, since everybody is fully agreed that his subjects are quite divine. His pictures are sweetly simple, the ingredients all must know, just a fair-haired child and a dog or two, a very old man and a baby's shoe, and some bunches of mistletoe. In some, an angelic infant is helping a kitten to play, or dressing a cat in grandpa's hat, which is equally hard on the hat and the cat, or teaching a dolly to pray. Or else there's a runaway couple with a distant view of papa, an elderly party with rich man's gout, who swears himself rapidly inside out in a broken-down motor car. Or it may be a scene in the workhouse, where a widow of high degree, with almost suspiciously puce-coloured hair, has arrived in a gorgeous carriage and pair to distribute a pound of tea. Sometimes he portrays a battle with a square like a rugby scrum, where a bugler, the colours grasped in his hand, and making a final determined stand, plays God Save the King on a drum. This is the kind of subject that he gives us day by day. You may jeer at the absence of all technique, but these are the pictures the people seek from this justly renowned R.A. In the distant suburban boudoirs, you will find them in gilded frames, the prodigal calf, a homely scene, grandmamma's boots, or to Gretna Green, the works of Archibald Ames. And if they appeal to the public in the usual course of events, some enterprising manager comes and buys them up for enormous sums, and they serve as advertisements. Where the child is painting the kitten with Potter's indelible dye, while grandpa shows to the reckless cat McBride's indestructible gibbous hat, which everyone ought to buy. And the Gretna Green arrangement an interest new acquires by depicting how great the advantages are of the patented Spoofenhaus autocar with unpuncturable tyres. And the widow, triquets for mourning, as black as Stevenson's ink, is curing the paupers of sundry ills by the gift of a box of the palest pills for persons who may be pink. And the bugler boy in the battle, with trousers of Blackett's blue, unshrinking as Simpson's surge, and free as Winkelson's patent eardrum he, and steadfast as Holdhard's glue. This is the modern fashion in the popular art of the day, and this is the reason that Archibald Ames ranks high among other familiar names as a very well-known R.A. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Ballad of Ping-pong by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Larry Wilson. After Swinburne. The murmurous moments of Maytime, what bountiful blessings they bring! As dew to the dawn of the daytime,
suspicions of summer to spring. Let others imagine the timelight, with maidens or books on their knee, or live in the languorous limelight that tinges the trunk of the tree. Let the timorous turn to their tennis, or the bowls to which bumpkins belong. But the thing for grown women and men is the pastime of ping and of pong. The game of the glorious glamour, the feeling of fight till you fall, the hurricane hail and the hammer, the batter and bruise of the ball. The glory of getting behind it, the brief but bewildering bliss, the fear of the failure to find it, the madness at making a miss. The sound of the sphere as you smack it, derisive, decisive, divine, the riotous rush of your racket, to mix and to mingle with mine. The diadem dear to the king is, how sweet to the singer his song. To me so the plea of the ping is, and the passionate plaint of the pong. I live for it, love for it, like it, delight of my dearest of dreams, to stand and to strive and to strike it, so certain, so simple it seems. Then give me the game of the gay time, the ball on its wandering wing, the pastime for night or for daytime, the pong, not to mention the ping. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Pessimist by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Lawley. After my telling, life's bed is full of crumbs and rice. No roses float on my lagoon. There are no fingers, white and nice, to rub my head with scented ice, or feed me with a spoon. I think of all the days gone by, replete with black and blue regret. No comets light my glaucous sky. My tears are hardly ever dry. I never can forget. I see the yellow dog Desire, that strains against the lead of hope, with lilac eyes and lips of fire, as all in vain he strives to tire the hand that holds the rope. I see the kisses of the past, like lambkins dying in the snow, the honeymoon that did not last, the tinted youth that flew so fast, and all this veil of woe. So, rising high, my raucous cry, I ask, and fates no answer give, why am I preordained to die? O cruel fortune, tell me, why am I allowed to live? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Place Where the Old Cleek Broke, after White Melville. Read for LibriVox.org by Greg Giordano. Life is hollow to the golfer, of however high his rank, if the dock leaf and the nettle grow too free, if a bramble bar his progress, if he's bunkered by a bank, if his golf ball jerks and wobbles off the tee. There's a ditch I never pass, full of stones and broken glass, and I'd sooner lift my ball and count a stroke, for the tears my vision blot when I see the fatal spot. 'Tis the place where my old cleek broke. There's his haft upon the table, there's his head upon a chair, and a better never felt the summer rain. I may curse and I may swear, my umbrella stand is bare. I shall never use my gallant cleek again. With what unaccustomed speed would he strike the golf ball teed? How it sounded on his metal at each stroke! Not a flyer in the game such parabolas could claim at the place where the old cleek broke. Was he cracked? I hardly think it. Did he slip? I do not know. He had struck the ball for 40 yards or more. He was driving smooth and even, just as hard as he could go. I had never seen him striking so before, but I hardly can complain, for there must have been a strain I had forced beyond the compass of a joke, and no club, however strong, could have lasted over long at the place where the Old Cleek broke. There are men, both staid and sound, who hold it happiness unique, at which only the irreverent can scoff, that is reached by means of brassy driver, niblick, spoon, or cleek, and that life is not worth living without golf. Well, I hope it may be so. For myself, I only know that I never more shall try another stroke. Yes, I've wearied of the sport since a lesson I was taught at the place where the Old Cleek broke. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Homes of London by Harry Graham, read for LibriVox.org with Richmond Teta. After Miss Hemans. The happy homes of London, how beautiful they stand, crowded human rookeries that mar this Christian land, where carts in hordes upon the roof for nightly music meet, and the horse, with non-adhesive hoof, skates slowly down the streets. The merry homes of London around bare heaths at night, with hungry looks and sickly mien, the children wail and fight. There woman's voice is only heard in shrill abusive key, and men can hardly speak a word that is not blaspheming. The healthy homes of London with weekly wifely wage, the hopeless husbands out of work, their daily thirst assuage, the overcrowded tenement is comfortless and bare, the atmosphere is redolent of hunger and despair. The blessed homes of London, by thousands on her stones, the helpless, homeless, destitute, do nightly rest their bones on pavement's Piccadilly way, in slumber like the dead. Their one pathetic forms they lay and make their humble bed. The free, fair homes of London, from all the thinking throng who mourn a nation's apathy. The cry goes up, how long? And those who love old England's name, her welfare and renown, can only contemplate with shame the homes of London town. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Happiest Land by Harry Graham, read for LibriVox.org by Kerry Adams, your book voice. The Happiest Land, after Longfellow. There sat one day in a tavern somewhere near Lincoln's Inn 6 sleepy-looking working men, imbibing 2s of gin. The potmen filled their tankards with the liquor each preferred. Torpid and somnolent they sat, and spake not one rude word. But when the potman vanished, a brawny Scot stood forth. "Change here," quoth he, "for Aberdeen, Strathpeffer, and the North. No country in the world I ken with Scotia can compare, with all the dar and canny men, and the bonny lasses there. I hae a wee bit hoosie, and a burn runs greeting by, an unco croquet minister, and a bairn to milk the kye. I hae a muckle haggis, a bap and a skian dew, a cairngorm and a bannock, and a sonsy kelliard too." "Be jabbers," said an Irishman, "a cushla and a corn. There is but one country on the earth. Old Ireland stands alone. Give me the Emerald Isle of Ich, with Murphy's 4 to 8, and as many pigs and children as the fingers on my fate, exclaimed the Frenchman. Par exemple, donnez-moi ma patrie. Vin ordinaire and savoir-faire are good enough for me. Have you the penknife of my aunt? Mais non, hélas, but then the female gardener has got some paper and a pen. Then spoke a Greek. The Isles of Greece, what can compare with those? Thalassa and Eureka, Rhododactylos, Eos. On London streets I'm working with a vat of asphalt stew, putting off the old macadam and laying down the new. But the country of my childhood is the best that man may know. O didimi, o sofimi, zoe emoyo sos agapo. Straight rose a German and remarked, What of the Vaterland? O Himmel, unberufen, on the lovely German band. Give me some Gotterdammerung, and nothing's more I need. But die Weichheit und Sauerkraut, ein Nibelungenlied. Nonsense, exclaimed an Englishman. I surely ought to know. Old England is the only place where any man should go. Show me the something foreigner who's such a fact denies, and if I can't convince him, I can black his blooming eyes. Then entered in the potman, and pointed to the door. Outside, said he, is where you'll go, if I have any more. It was 6 friendly working men, brimming with twos of gin, who crept from out the tavern as the dawn came creeping in. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
A London Involuntary by After W. E. Henley. Read for LibriVox.org by Greg Giordano. Spizzicato non poco scherzando. Old Palace Yard, hark how their breath draws lank and hard, the sallow, stern police, breaking the desultory midnight peace, with plangent call to cry, Division! This their first especial charge. And now, lo, luminous and large, the slumberous member hurries by. Let us take cab, dear heart, take cab and go. From out the lith of this loud world I know the meaning of the word. Come, let us hie to where the lampposts ouch the troubled sky. And if there is one thing for which I vouch, it is my knowledge of the verb to ouch. So, as we steal homeward together, we shall feel the buxom breeze. Observe the epithet, an apt one, if you please. Down through the sober paven street, which, purged and sweet, gleams in the ambient deluge of the water cart, bemused and blurred and pinkly lustrous, where the blandest lion in Trafalgar Square seems but a part of the great continent of light, an attribute of the embittered night. How new, how naked, and how clean! Couchant, slow, shimmering, superb, constant to one environment, nor even seen. Pottering aimlessly along the curb, lo! On the pavement one of those grim men who go down to the sea in ships, blaspheming, reeling in a foul ellipse, home to some tangled alley bedside goes, oozing and flushed, sharing his elemental mirth with all the jocund, undissembling earth, drooping his shameless nose, nor hitching up his drifting, shifting clothes. And here is Piccadilly, loudly dense, intractable, voluminous, immense. Dear, dear, my heart's desire, can I be talking sense? End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Bluebeard by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Alan Lawley. Yes, I'm Bluebeard, and my name is one that children cannot stand. Yet once I used to be so tame, I'd eat out of a person's hand. So gentle was I wont to be, a curate might have played with me. People accord me little praise, yet I am not the least alarming. I can recall in bygone days, a maid once said she thought me charming. She was my friend, no more I vow, and she's in an asylum now. Girls used to clamour for my hand, girls I refused in simple dozens. I said I'd be their brother, and they promised they would be my cousins. One I accepted, more or less, but I've forgotten her address. They worried me like anything by their proposals every day, until at last I had to ring the bell and have them cleared away. They longed to share my lofty rank, also my balance at the bank. My hospitality to those whom I invite to come and stay is famed. My wine like water flows, exactly like some people say. But this is mere impertinence to one who never spares expense. When through the streets I walk about, my subjects stand and kiss their hands, raise a refined metallic shout, wave flags and warble tunes on bands, while bunting hangs on every front, with my commands to let it bunt. When I come home again, of course, retainers are employed to cheer. My paid domestics get quite hoarse, acclaiming me, and you can hear the welkin ringing to the sky. Aye, aye, and let it welk, say I. And yet, in spite of this, there are some persons who, at different times, because I am so popular, accuse me of most awful crimes. A girl once said I was a flirt. Oh my, how the expression hurt. I never flirted in the least, never for very long, I mean. Ask any lady, now deceased, who partner of my life has been. Oh well, of course, sometimes, perhaps, I met a girl, like other chaps. And if I like her very much, and if she cares for me a bit, where is the harm of look or touch if neither of us mentions it? It isn't right, I don't suppose, but no one's hurt if no one knows. One should not break oneself too fast of little habits of this sort, which may be definitely classed with gambling or a taste for port, they should be slowly dropped until the heart is subject to the will. I knew a man in Regent Street who, at a very slight expense, by preserving was complete, lay cured of total abstinence, and altered life he has begun, and takes a glass with anyone. I knew another man whose wife was an inveterate suicide. She daily strove to take her life, and, naturally, nearly died. But some such system she essayed, and now she's 80 in the shade. Ah, the new leaves I tried to turn, but, like so many men in town, I seem, as with regret I learn, merely to turn the corner down, a habit which, I fear, alack, makes it more easy to turn back. I have been criticized a lot. I venture to inquire what for, because, forsooth, I have not got the instincts of a bachelor. Just hear my story, you will find how grossly I have been maligned. I was unlucky with my wives, so are the most of married men. Undoubtedly they lost their lives, of course, but even so, what then? I loved them like no other man, and I can love, you bet I can. My first was little Emmeline, more beautiful than day was she. Her proud aristocratic mien was what at once attracted me. I naturally did not know that I should soon dislike her so. But there it was, and you'll infer I had not very long to wait before my red-hot love for her turned to unutterable hate. So, when this state of things I found, I had her casually drowned. My next was Sarah, sweet but shy, and quite inordinately meek. Yes, even now, I wonder why I had her hanged within the week. Perhaps I felt a bit upset, or else she bored me, I forget. Then came Evangeline, my third, and when I chanced to be away, she, so I subsequently heard, was wont, I deeply grieved to say, with my small retinue to flirt. I strangled her. I hope it hurt. Isabel was, I think, my next, that is, if I remember right, and I was really very vexed to find her hair come off at night. To falsehood I could not connive, and so I had her boiled alive. Then came Sophia, I believe. Her coiffure was at least her own. Alas, she fancied to deceive her friends by altering its tone. She dyed her locks a flaming red. I suffocated her in bed. Susanna Maud was number 6, but she did not survive a day. Poor Sue, she had no parlour tricks, and hardly anything to say. Her little strychnine in her tea finished her off, and I was free. Yet I did not despair. and soon, in spite of failures, started off upon my 7th honeymoon with Jane, but could not stand her cough. 'Twas chronic, kindness was in vain. I pushed her underneath the train. Well, after her I married Kate, a most unpleasant woman, oh. I caught her at the garden gate, kissing a man I didn't know, and as that didn't suit me quite, I blew her up with dynamite. Most married men, so sorely tried as this, would have been rather bored. Not I, but chose another bride, and married Ruth. Alas, she snored. I served her just the same as Kate, and so she joined the other 8. My last was Grace, I am not clear. I think she didn't like me much. She used to scream when I came near, and shuddered at my lightest touch. She seemed to wish to keep aloof, and so I threw her off the roof. This is the point I wish to make. From all the wives for whom I grieve, whose lives I had perforce to take, not one complaint did I receive, and no expense was spared to please my spouses at their obsequies. My habits, I would have you know, are perfect as they've always been. You ask if I am good, and go to church and keep my fingers clean. I do, I mean to say I am. I have the morals of a lamb. In my domains there is no sin. Virtue is rampant all the time, since I so thoughtfully brought in a bill which legalizes crime. Committing things that are not wrong must pour before so very long. And if what you imagine vice is not considered so at all, crime doesn't seem the least bit nice. There's no temptation then to fall, for half the charm of things we do is knowing that we oughtn't to. Believe me then, I am not bad, though in my youth I had to trek, because I happened to have had some difficulties with a cheque. What forgery in some might be, is absent-mindedness in me. I know that I was much abused, no doubt when I was young and rash, but I should not have been accused of misappropriating cash. I may have sneaked a silver dish. Well, you may search me if you wish. So now you see me, more or less, as I would figure in your thoughts, a trifle given to excess, and prone perhaps to vice of sorts, when tempted rather apt to fall, but still a good chap after all. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
The Woman with the Dead Souls, after Stephen Phillips. Read for LibriVox.org by Greg Giordano. Attracted to the frozen river's brink, where on a small impromptu snow-swept rink the happy skaters darted left and right, or circled amorously out of sight, some self-supporting, some like falling stars, spread eagling ankle-weak parabolas. I watched the humans swarm, and I was where a woman disarranged knelt on a chair. She had cold feet on which she could not run, and piteously she thawed them in the sun. Those feet were of a woman that alone was kneeling, a pink liquid by her shone, which raising to her luminous lantern jaw, she sipped or idly stirred it with a straw. Upon her hat she wore a kind of fowl, an hummingbird, I ween, or else an owl. Then turned to me, I looked the other way. Trembling, I knew the words she wished to say. So warm her gaze the blood rushed to my head. Instinctively I knew her feet were dead. Amorphous feet like monumental moons, pavement obliterating vast pontoons, superbly varnished to the ice had come, and now snow-kissed, frost-fettered, dangled numb. Gently she spoke, the while my senses whirled, of largest circulations in the world. Wildly she spoke, as babble men in dreams, of feeling life's blood rushing to extremes. But I ignored her with deliberate stare, until the indelicate thing began to swear. Sensations of pins and needles rose, Apollinaris-like in tingled toes. She felt the hungry frost that punctured holes, like concentrated sedlets in her soles. Feebly she stepped, and sudden was aware her feet had gone, they were no longer there, and from her boots was willing to be freed. She would not keep what she could never need. Sullenly I consented, and withdrew from either heel a huge chaotic shoe. Yet for a time, laboriously and slow, she journeyed with her ponderous boots, as though along with her she could not help but bear the barge-like burdens she was wont to wear. Towards me she reeled, and "Oh, my uncle!" cried, "my uncle!" But I pushed her to one side, then smiled upon her so she could not stay. My smile can frighten motor cars away. While thus I grinned, not knowing what to do, a belted beetle in immaculate blue plucked at my sleeve and shattered my romance, wheeling on cushioned tires an ambulance. Deliberately then he laid her there, tucked in and bore away. I did not care. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Rosemary, A Ballad of the Boudoir by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Divya. Ere August be turned to September, nor summer to autumn as yet, my darling, you autumn remember, what summer so sure to forget. Though age may extinguish the ember that glowed in our hearts when we met, remember, my love, to remember, and I will forget to forget. Who knows but the winds of December may drift us asunder, my pet, and if I forget to remember, remember, my sweet, to forget. My beauty will fade as the posy you gave me that night on the stairs. My lips will not always be rosy. My head cannot give itself airs. Alas, as we both become older, existence draws nigh to a close. So until I've forgotten your shoulder, you must not remember my nose. Our days were not all sunny weather. Even so we have not to regret. Ah, let us remember together until we forget to forget. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Portnoy's Porter by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Sandra. With apologies to Porphyria's lover. The train came early in tonight. The sullen guard was soon awake, and threw my luggage down, for spite, to where the platform seemed a lake, and did his best my box to break. When sidled up a porter, straight, he mopped the platform with a broom, and kneeling, made the well-filled grate blaze up within the waiting-room, and so dispelled the usual gloom. Which done, he came and took his seat beside me, doffed his coat, untied his bootlaces, and let his feet peep coyly out on either side, then called me. When no voice replied, he rolled his shirt-sleeve up and rose, and laid his brawny biceps bare, and where my eyebrows meet my nose, he slowly shook his fist, just there, and seized me by my yellow hair. Then roughly asked me, had I got a head as empty as a bubble? Bidding me sternly, did I not desire henceforth to see things double, to give him something for his trouble? Nor could my arguments prevail, entreaties, threats, were all in vain. Returned he to the twice-told tale of how, from out the midnight train, he bore my luggage through the rain. I fixed him with my cold grey eye, but all in vain. At last I knew that porter hated me, though why, I cannot understand. Can you? And what on earth was I to do? Next moment, though I still perspire to think of it, I quickly found a thing to do, and on the fire I pushed him backwards with a bound, and piled the coal up all around. Cremated him. No pain he felt. As a shut coop that holds a hen, I oped the register, and smelt an odour as of burnt quill pen. My laughter bubbled over then. I seized him lightly with the tongs about his waist, and through the door I bore him, burning with my wrongs, and laid him on the line. What's more, the down express was due at 4. The mark is on the metals still, a gruesome stain, I must confess, and when I pass it makes me ill to note the somewhat painful mess concocted by the down express. Portnoy's porter, so he died. The date of inquest is deferred. 'Tis thought a case of suicide, and he who might have seen or heard, the guard, has never said a word. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. The Ballad of the Little Jinglander by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Sandra. When the mother country calls. With apologies to all concerned. North and south and east and west, the message travels fast. East and west and north and south, the bugles blare and blast. North and west and east and south, the battle cry grows plain. West and south and north and east, it echoes back again. For the east is calling westwards, and the north is speaking south. There's a threat on every curling lip, an oath in every mouth. 'Tis the shadow of an empire or the universe that falls, and the winds of heaven wonder when the mother country calls. Now the call is carried coastwise, from Calais to Bungapore, from the sunny South Pacific to the North Atlantic shore, gathers volume in its footsteps, and grows grander as it goes, from Jaboom to Ponga Wongo, where the Rum-Tum-Putra flows. The native-born, he sits alert beneath a deodar, he sharpens up his cummerbund and loads his kitmagar. His Eka stands untasted, as he girds upon his brow the scythe his father gave him, saying, Unka Punka Jow. Come forth, you Babu Jamadar, no lack of pice we bring. Bid the Farash comb your moustache, and join the great white king. And westward, where Our Lady of the Sunshine, not the snows, delights to herd the caribou, and where the chipmunk grows, the habitant he sits amid a grove of maple trees, he decorates his shanty and he polishes his skis, and see, through ranch or lumber camp, where'er the news shall go, the daughters cease to gather fruit, the sons to shovel snow. They love the dear old motherland that they have never seen, the empire that they advertise as vaster than has been. Come forth, ye mild militiaman, to conquer or to fail. Who is it helps the lion's whelps untwist the lion's tail? The pride of race, the pride of place, and bond of blood they feel. The Indies indicate it, and New Zealand shows new zeal. The daughters in their mother's house are mistress in their own. They are her heirs, her flesh is theirs, and they would share her bone. Lo, Greater Britain stretches out her hands across the sea. Australia forgets her impecuniosity. On Afric's shore the wily Boer is ready now to fight for the khaki, and the Ruinek for the empire and the right. Come forth, you valiant volunteer, come forth to do or die. You give a hand to mother, and she'll help you by and by. Upon her score of distant shores the sun is always bright, and always in her empire too it must be somewhere night. Her birthplace is the ocean, where her pennon braves the breeze. Her motto, what is ours we'll hold, and what is not we'll seize. Her rule is strong, her purse is long, her sons are stern and true. With iron hands she holds her lands, and other people's too. She sees her chance and cries, advance, while others stand and gape. Her oxen goads shall claim the roads from Cairo to the Cape. Come out, you big black fuzzy wuzz, you've got to take your share. We'll make you sweat till you forget you broke a British square. North and south and east and west the message travels fast. East and west and north and south the bugles blare and blast. Hear we but a whisper that the foe is at the walls, and by gad we'll show them something when the mother country calls. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Afterword by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by Laurie Wilson. 'Tis done. We reach the final page with feelings of relief, I'm certain. And there arrives at such a stage the moment to ring down the curtain. This metaphor is freely taken from Shakespeare, or perhaps from Bacon. The book perused, our future brings a plethora of blank tomorrows, when memories of happier things will be our sorrow's crown of sorrows. I trust you recognize this line as being Tennyson's, not mine. My verses may indeed be few, but are they not, to quote the poet, the sweetest things that ever grew beside a human door? I know it. What an inhuman door it would be. Inquire of Wordsworth, please, not me. 'Twas one of my most cherished dreams to write a moral book some day. What says the bard? The best laid schemes of mice and men gang oft agley. The bard here mentioned, by the by, is Robbie Burns, of course, not I. And though my pen records each thought as swift as the phonetic pitman, morality is not my forte. O camarados, vida Whitman! And like the porcupine, I still am forced to ply a fretful quill. We may be masters of our fate, as Henley was inspired to mention, yet I am but the second mate upon the SS Good Intention. For me the course direct is lacking, I have to do a deal of tacking. To seek for morals, here's a task of which you well may be despairing. What has become of them, you ask? They've given me the slip, like Waring. Look east, said Browning once, and I would make a similar reply. Look east, where in a garret drear the author works without cessation, composing verses for a mere lie nominal remuneration, and while he has the strength to write 'em, will do so still ad infinitum. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain.
Envoy by Harry Graham. Read for LibriVox.org by mleigh. Speed flippant rhymes throughout the land. Disperse yourselves with patient zeal. Go perch upon the critic's hand just after he has had a meal. But should he still unfriendly be, unperch and hasten back to me. O gentle maid, O happy boy, this copy of my book is done. But don't forget that I enjoy a royalty on every one. Just think how wealthy I should be if you would purchase 2 or 3. Moral. No moral that I ever took seemed quite so evident before. If purchasing an author's book will keep the wolf from his back door, it is our very obvious mission to buy up the entire edition. End of poem. This recording is in the public domain. End of Verse and Worse by Harry Graham.